A TWA jumbo jet on a routine flight from New York to Paris, France. Suddenly, it explodes and plunges burning into the Atlantic. There are over 200 people on board. Is it a missile attack, a terrorist bomb, or a catastrophic mechanical failure? Now, using advanced computer simulation, we reveal what really went wrong on flight TWA 800. Disasters don't just happen, they're a chain of critical events. Unravel the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. America, New York City. John F. Kennedy Airport, July 17th, 1996. Security is tight at New York's busiest airport. Tens of thousands of people will pass through JFK today on some 1,000 flights. They are all potential targets for terrorist attack. Heading to JFK today are two young college students from Macon, Georgia. Becky Olson is 20 years old. She's been best friends with 19-year-old Michelle Becker since high school. They're excited. Today they'll fly to Paris for a friend's wedding, followed by a backpacking holiday around Europe. The girl's parents have given the trip their blessing.
They were very excited to be going. They just knew it was going to be a wonderful new adventure.
(4:31 p.m.) The Boeing 747 that will become TWA Flight 800 to Paris arrives at JFK. It's 25 years old and has more than 16,000 flights under its belt. 6 p.m. 212 passengers board Flight 800 in good time for a 7 p.m. takeoff. 7 p.m. Captain Snyder and the flight crew are ready to go. But there's a problem. One of the passengers is not on board, but her bags are already in the hold. The plane is delayed while ground staff hunt for the missing passenger. Outside, it's 28 degrees Celsius, and on the asphalt of the apron, the jumbo is getting hot. As the minutes tick by, air conditioning units under the fuselage keep the passengers cool. At 7:59 p.m., gate personnel contact the crew.
TWA Flight 800, sorry about that delay. We have confirmation that the passenger is on board. They were on board the whole time.
8:19. At last, Captain Kevorkian throttles up the 747. Flight 800 lifts off an hour and 20 minutes late. TWA 800's flight path will take it through some of the most congested airspace in the USA. It will also skirt the boundary of a US military zone to the south. Air traffic control clears Flight 800 to climb to its next level.
TWA 800, heavy turn left heading 050, vector climbing around traffic.
Climb to 15,000.
Crew and passengers settle in for the flight. Then, suddenly, 12 minutes out of JFK on a routine trip to Paris, TWA Flight 800 explodes in a huge fireball. At air traffic control, Flight 800 suddenly disappears off radar screens. Air traffic control tries to raise Flight 800 on the radio.
TWA 800, if you hear center, ident.
There's no response. Thousands of meters below, a helicopter from the Air National Guard flying on a training mission is caught beneath the blast.
I looked over my right shoulder, and this fire exploded across the sky and came down like a curtain, like napalm.
Now the helicopter crew is in danger. If debris hits the rotor blades, they too could crash into the water.
We had to get out of there.
The helicopter makes it away safely. They race to get help. Back at base, Major Mike Noyes prepares to take command of the helicopter and head out to the crash site. First on the scene is the Air National Guard rescue helicopter. The sea below them is on fire.
Picture a campfire that's a half mile long, but the flames are, oh, I don't know, they're at least 10 feet high.
A small armada of 40 Coast Guard boats plus police and civilian craft joins the search. In the darkness, rescuers scan the wreckage for signs of life. Meanwhile, reports of the disaster start to break on the news channels.
This is the latest we have on the flight that crashed tonight of TWA Flight 800 into the waters off Long Island, New York. This was on its way from...
Among those watching are Aurelie and Walter Becker. They realize it's the flight of their daughter, Michelle.
The first pictures you saw were shot from the helicopter with the debris field and the flames coming out of the water. And I said, oh my God.
Search and rescue, we know, is a nightmare. They are looking for people who survived this.
After 3 hours of searching, none of the hundreds of rescuers can find a single survivor. They've covered 13 square kilometers of ocean. It's now clear that all 230 people on board died in the crash. News reaches the FBI and New York Assistant Director James Kallstrom. Kallstrom immediately suspects the crash is no accident.
My gut told me that this was probably an intervention by some criminal, some terrorist.
The FBI launches a major criminal investigation. Within hours, hundreds of agents and police rush to the coast. Pilots who were near the jet when it exploded tell FBI agents that the blast came out of the blue. But witnesses on the ground report something highly suspicious.
We had 50, 60 people that had called in and said, I saw things in the sky. Some described them as ascending towards this fireball.
Over time, 258 people tell the FBI they saw something streaking through the sky at the moment the 747 was lost.
I followed the streak of light, red-orange in color, moving from my left center to my further left.
Kallstrom faces a horrifying possibility. Was Flight 800 shot down by a terrorist missile? Now, by rewinding the events and going deep into the investigation, we can reveal what really happened to Flight 800. Agents interview 670 eyewitnesses. They painstakingly check the movements of 20,000 craft in the area. They seize stolen and abandoned boats and run forensic tests on them. But they can't find any promising leads. Then the missile theory takes a new and astonishing turn. Stories and rumors begin to circulate on the internet and in the press. They make an extraordinary allegation. The TWA Flight 800 was shot down not by terrorists, but in a terrible accident by the US military. The FBI knows that Flight 800 did skirt the edge of an active military weapons fire zone, Whiskey 105, an area of several thousand square kilometers south of Long Island. The Navy routinely uses it for training exercises and on occasion does fire missiles at special airborne targets. Could one have struck Flight 800 in a catastrophic targeting error? The FBI's James Kallstrom goes straight to the top at the Pentagon.
So I had a conversation that next day with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Charlie Kashvili, and told him that we were going to need the absolute cooperation of all the military services.
Karlstrom learns that there were 8 military ships, 8 submarines, and 5 military planes within 550 kilometers of the crash site. A P-3 plane and a sub were in the middle of training exercises. He orders dozens of FBI agents to scrutinize all their logs. After weeks of checking, they verify that no missiles were unaccounted for. No missiles were fired that night. The FBI concludes that the friendly fire theory is groundless. A terrorist bomb or missile is still one of the chief suspects for the loss of Flight 800. But the only way of finding out for sure what downed the plane is to analyze the wreckage. That job falls to the FBI's co-investigators, the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB. Their priority, to find the plane's flight recorders, or black boxes. Since the day after the crash, Navy divers have scoured the debris zone in the deep waters off Long Island. 6 days into the search, and there's no sign of the black boxes. Then, on day 7, a diver spots something. A flash of orange.
The cockpit voice recorder. That's it. You see the beacon right on it?
Within seconds, they get lucky again. The flight data recorder lies just meters away.
They got both of them? Holy cow!
Against all the odds, the tape is intact and playable.
TWA 800.
They carefully analyze all the pilots' conversations and the readings from the data recorder.
Stop climb at 13,000. And the electric?
They scour the last seconds of the recording for any clues to the plane's sudden loss. But at 8:31 and 12 seconds, the recording cuts off suddenly. Whatever happened to Flight 800, the pilots had no time to react. The excitement of the find turns to bitter disappointment.
The voice recorder, and the same with the data recorder, really told us nothing.
Now the investigators must rely entirely on the salvaged wreckage of the doomed jet for clues. Every fragment of the plane must be brought back to shore so that they can study it in detail. Here, investigators analyze the debris for any trace of explosives. If Flight 800 was brought down by a bomb or a missile, it would leave evidence behind. NTSB metallurgists examine the fragments under scanning electron microscopes.
We looked at every piece, every square inch of every piece, every fracture, every surface. Each piece as it came in was examined in detail for evidence of a bomb or an explosion, and there simply was no evidence of that type on the TWA airplane.
The criminal investigation hits a brick wall. Now the NTSB focuses on catastrophic mechanical failure as the likely cause of the crash. The fuselage is riddled with fractures. To trace where the plane's breakup started, Wildey first needs to calculate the sequence of the fractures.
All of these early fractures stemmed from one location, and that was right here in the fuselage, just in front of the front spar, near the bottom of the airplane.
Now Wildey must find what triggered the initial fracturing. He looks behind the spot where the fractures begin. It's the site of the 747's biggest fuel tank, the massive center wing tank. Inside the tank, he discovers something disturbing. A series of dents in the front of the tank, known as the front spar. The most likely scenario for the damage? An explosion inside the tank. The obvious culprit for such a blast, jet fuel. Investigators examine the fueling records at JFK. They find that the ground crew left Flight 800's center wing tank almost empty, with just 190 liters of Jet A fuel in it. That's that's just a puddle in the bottom. It seems a small amount of fuel to cause such extensive damage. But Wildey knows that Jet A fuel in its liquid state is not highly flammable. But when it's enclosed in a tank and heated up, it vaporizes, becoming easy to ignite. Now investigators must discover whether the fuel in Flight 800's center wing tank could have been heated to flash point. They know that right underneath the center wing tank lie the plane's air conditioning packs. They produce cool, breathable cabin air using hot air taken from the jet engines.
So we have this extremely hot air, hot enough to cook a chicken, within inches of the bottom of the tank itself.
Investigators calculate that the flash point of the fuel in the center wing tank would be remarkably low, just 35.8 degrees Celsius. Could the air conditioners have heated the fuel enough to reach this critical temperature? To find out, NTSB and FAA scientists mount an audacious experiment to restage Flight 800. They fill the center wing tank of a 747 with 189 liters of Jet A fuel and fit it with 90 temperature sensors. The plane sits on the tarmac with the air conditioning on for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Then the 747 takes off. It follows the same ascent profile as Flight 800. Investigators examine the readings from the temperature sensors. What they find horrifies them. The temperature in the center wing tank is 53 degrees Celsius, a full 17 degrees past the fuel's flash point.
The test flight conclusively showed that the center wing tank had become flammable.
But investigators are mystified about what might have ignited the fuel vapor.
As we ruled out numerous potential ignition sources, what we came back to again and again was the wiring and the fuel quantity indication system.
Wires run from the cockpit to fuel probes inside the center wing tank. Swaim suspects there may well have been an exposed wire in the fuel tank. That could create a dangerous spark. But there's a puzzle. The wires inside the fuel tank are designed to carry a very low voltage, too low to cause a spark. Swaim follows the fuel probe wires outside the fuel tank. Here they join high voltage wires for the cabin lights and other aircraft systems which run in bundles through the belly of the 25-year-old plane. He looks more closely at the surviving wiring on the crashed 747 and on other jumbo jets of a similar age and makes a disturbing discovery.
We were shocked by the condition of the wiring we found.
Swaim finds the remains of fluid spills and sharp metal shavings among the bundles of wire. He also finds chafed wires, wires repaired with tape, and even some with cracked insulation. He concludes that the poor state of wiring on older 747s could allow high voltage electricity to jump into the fuel tank wires. It could then pass into the fuel tank, causing a short circuit. The resulting spark would ignite the fuel vapor. The NTSB believe a fuel tank explosion blew apart Flight 800 when a short circuit caused a fatal spark. But they have no proof. Short circuits often leave no physical trace in wiring. Their one hope of proving the theory is the plane's black boxes, which hold the only surviving flight data. The 13-minute cockpit voice recording seems unremarkable. But as they replay the tape, investigators hear something intriguing. Just before the recording cuts off, there are two minuscule pauses. They're each just 2 microseconds long. But they're telltale signs of a momentary loss of power to the recorder. It's an astounding discovery. The pause in the recording backs the investigators' theory. that there was a short circuit on Flight 800. And it could happen on any one of 1,200 other 747s in service around the world. It's the final piece of the puzzle. Investigators now know the probable chain of events that triggered the loss of TWA Flight 800. 12.5 minutes to disaster. Flight 800 takes off. Air conditioners have been keeping passengers cool during the delay. But they've also heated the Jet A fuel in the center wing tank to flash point. It's now filled with almost 50 cubic meters of highly explosive fuel-air mix. The 747 is a flying bomb. 44 seconds to go.
Climb the 15,000.
Damaged wiring allows high voltage current to jump into wiring outside the center wing tank and run down into the tank. When the current reaches a section of bare wire, it jumps to another metal surface, forming a short circuit. The resulting spark ignites the deadly mix of fuel and air. Disaster strikes. The explosion blows out one of the inner panels. It strikes the tank's outer skin, smashing it into the plane's fuselage. The first fuselage fracture spreads fast. Now multiple fractures race around the plane. In 4 seconds, they meet, severing the 747's nose. The nose plunges downward like a bullet. The rest of the plane, with most of the passengers still in it, soars upwards. Investigators believe that this is the trail of light eyewitnesses see streaking up into the sky. At 4,600 meters, the main section stalls. A tiny spark has brought down the enormous jumbo jet, killing 230 people. The families of the victims band together to build a memorial to their loved ones on Long Island. The disaster is a wake-up call to the aviation industry. The Federal Aviation Administration issues more than 70 airworthiness directives to eliminate any possible source of accidental ignition and improve insulation of wiring to fuel tanks. Boeing implements the FAA orders and also introduces fuel tank inerting, a system that tops up fuel tanks with nitrogen, preventing jet fuel from catching fire. The first commercial jumbo jet fitted with an inerting system rolled out in the summer of 2005.